How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Fem Kyubi and Lady. Part 1. Huge shout out to Nami KAAZAE09 for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. The sound of electricity piercing flesh and bone was heard throughout the area. Both Kakashi's, Zabuza's and Haku's eye widen in shock at what just happened. Naruto just used himself as a shield to protect Haku from Kakashi's attack Raikiri, which pierced through his chest and out of his back. The blonde boy coughs up a huge amount of blood which pours out of his mouth and falls onto the concrete of the bridge. The look on Haku's face was one of awe, fear and sadness. The boy she just met for only a day saved her life by sacrificing his own. Naruto-kun. Why? Why did you do it? She asks while tears formed into her eyes. Naruto somehow manages to hear this and turns his head weakly at the ice user and a weak smile appears on his face. Because you shouldn't throw your life away like that Haku-chan cough. You and I are similar. We both suffered and both were hated for something we had no say in. I wish we could have met on a different occasion too, but it seems I won't get the chance to see you live your own life. He says and then looks back at the fading Raikiri that entered into his chest cavity and when it's gone, he pulls out Kakashi's hand while grunting in pain. When he finally removes it shocking the copy nin, a sickening squelch was heard and he falls to the ground while a puddle of his own blood forms on the ground. Haku realized what had happened and then tears fell from her face. Naruto-kun. She cried out and ran towards him and kneeled down. The blonde's breathing started to become shallow and darkness was about to take his vision over. Please don't go. You're the only person aside from Zabuza-sama to ever connect with me. Please don't leave me. She begged while tears fell from her face and onto his cheek while he smiled a smile that was filled with his own blood. Sorry Haku-chan, but appears that life can be cruel to anyone, especially the innocent cough I'm sorry. He says while his lids become heavy scaring Haku. No. Stay awake you baka. Stay awake. She screamed out as more tears dropped onto the blonde. Zabuza who was watching this couldn't help but admire the boy's resolve. I can't believe it. This boy, no young man saved mine and Haku's life. Why would he save the enemy and how does Haku know him? Did she meet him when I was recovering? Kakashi however looked away from his fallen student. The dogs that were latched to Zabuza disappeared into a puff of smoke and he lets out a painful grunt. Haku he started to say to the now sobbing and broken girl who was watching her first friend pass away slowly. Him, Kakashi, Haku, Tazuna and Sakura heard a laugh from the other side of the bridge. It was Tazuna and what appeared to be 100 thugs, while in the middle of the gap was a short man in a black suit grinning. Well would you look at this? The demon of the mist and his bitch are defeated by a bunch of brats, how pathetic. He says out loud while the other thugs laugh. Zabuza glares at the man while Haku looks up in shock to see Gato. Naruto looks up weakly and glares at the man too. So that's the team who killed Inari's dad cough. He says and finds it hard to give into the darkness. Gato grins as he looks at the situation. Zabuza tries to pick up Kubikiri Honcho, but his arms were in pain and were weak. Kakashi's chakra was low and he couldn't use another Raikiri unless he wanted to pass out again. Once I kill you fools I'll have my men ransack the village. But I think I'll keep the women alive for stress relief, especially that bitch that broke my arm. I'm gonna enjoy making you scream before I give you to my men. He says while licking his lips and the men give her a lecherous look. Haku's eyes widen in fear when she heard that and couldn't fight back due to how much chakra she used up. Naruto heard this and his eyes widened in horror and he started to leak a small amount of murderous intent out. Zabuza's eyes widened in fury and he somehow managed to lift up his Zanbatsu. The only way you're getting to her Gato is over my dead corpse. He snarled out and took a step forward. TCH. As if you can do anything fool. Whoever brings me his head and that bitch first will be paid in double. He yells out while the men yell out a war cry and start to charge. No. I won't let that bastard touch Haku-chan. He ranted in his mind and struggled to get up. Damn it, why am I so weak? I'm tired of being weak. I want power. The power to protect my comrades and loved ones, damn it. I want power. He cries out in his thought while a bluish-purple aura slowly surrounds his body. Mindscape. Naruto finds himself in a sewer with a cage in front of him with the kanji seal on it. That was when a pair of red slitted eyes appear behind the cage and looks down at Naruto. The eyes then become the head of a large fox. Naruto looks at the fox in shock, but then the fox grins while it starts to glow and shrink. The glow becomes human-shaped and in front of Naruto was the most beautiful woman he's ever laid eyes on. Her face was heart-shaped and she had ruby-red slitted eyes and ivory-colored skin. She wore a crimson kimono with what appeared to be black suns on them and it hugged her hourglass figure. Her assets were D-cupped and seemed to be not too big and not too small. Her long flowing red hair was a reddish-orange color, and fox ears appeared to be on her head. 9 flowing reddish-orange tails swayed behind her, and she also had a slit in her kimono, which showed off her long sexy legs. She also had on ruby red lipstick. Naruto couldn't help but blush at the sight, and she let out a devious grin, and an unknown force pushes him towards the cage. She then reaches out and caresses the boy's face with hands. "Do you want power, boy? The power to protect those you cherish?" She asks in a calming and melodic voice. "Huh?" he asks while she repeats the question. "I ask you if you wanted power. Power that would make you strong enough to protect anyone you cherished?" Kyuubi asks. "Yes, but what does me wanting power to protect Haku-chan have to do with you, Kyuubi?" Naruto asks while the fox eyes. "Because boy, you have just activated your bloodline, one that surpasses all the others. I can fully activate it, but I want freedom," she says, and Naruto steps back. "No way. You'll just finish what you started 14 years ago. Plus it's your fault my life was a living hell in the first place. Why the hell should I trust you?" He yells, and she gets angry and releases a wave of killer onto the frightened boy. "Because you have no other choice, you stupid fool. Did you forget what that man plans on doing to that ice girl and the females of the village? I'm trying to help you awaken your ancestors' bloodline. A bloodline that'll make all others look like a joke. And do you actually think I attacked your village for the fun of it? Well, guess what, ninja. I didn't have a say in the matter." She yells out, making his mindscape shake from her voice, and Naruto falls on his ass with wide eyes. She breathes in and out to calm down and speaks up. "Listen to me, kid, you have to trust me with this. I'll tell you everything if you just trust me for now. Also, your bloodline has the ability to keep me in check. Even if I wanted to do something, it'll stop me due to how powerful it is. So what will it be?" Naruto gets up and thinks about it. This power he had could make him stronger and save Haku, but what about the cost? Will he become a monster? A demon? The very creature his so-called village despises? Screw it. If my bloodline will make me strong enough to save Haku-chan, then I'll do it. Screw the consequences. If I become the very thing they hate, then so be it. He thought, and looks up at Kyuubi with a look of determination and strength in his eyes. "I'll do it. I'll keep my word to set you free, but you must keep yours and tell me what happened that night. Does that sound fair?" he asks, and she nods. "I promise, kid. Now get ready because this will hurt a lot. To think that this boy's family are the descendants of Sparda. What's even more shocking is that his devil's blood is even more powerful than that of Dante and Virgil's blood. If this boy manages to fully master it, he'll probably be on par if not above Sparda's level of power. He'd also make a great mate," she thought with a small blush on her face, and when her eyes glow red, Naruto suddenly screams out in pain and vanishes from his mind. Outside world. The bluish-purple energy that surrounds Naruto's body grows bigger and bigger while his eyes become red and his breathing became raspy. Gato's men got ready to charge at the weakened Nin, and when they started to, they stopped and froze in fear at the murderous intent and power they were feeling. Kakashi and Zabuza felt it too, and they looked over at the direction where it came from. Haku stopped crying and looked at Naruto's with wide eyes. His body that was surrounded by the aura and his eyes were glowing red. Naruto's breathing started to get raspier, and he started to slowly get up. The hole in his chest started to close up with steam rising from it, and his features started to change. His hair started to change. It got longer and spikier until it was shoulder length, and bangs appeared on the side of his face. It also changed from blonde to silver white, Tobirama's and Minato's hairstyle combined. The whisker marks on his face started to fade away, and the baby fat on his face and body started to shrink and became lean muscle, but not too lean. His orange jacket started to stretch and rip as he started to grow a little, and the incisors in his upper jaw became longer. Kakashi's eye widens in shock as he witnesses this and was trembling slightly for the power he was feeling. "What's this power I'm feeling from Naruto? Is the fox getting free? No, this isn't the Kyuubi's power, it's something else, and it's stronger than the fox's aura. What's happening to you, Naruto?" he thought as he watched the aura become stronger and swirl around the boy's body. Zabuza was sweating a little at the power. What the hell? This can't be chakra, it's too powerful. How can he unleash this level of power from his body and not be crushed by the pressure? He thought, and the former blonde snarled as his energy flared up instantly, sending a small shockwave around the area. Haku let out an eep while covering her face with her hands to keep the debris out of her face and eyes. Kakashi and Zabuza had to add chakra to their feet to avoid being sent flying off the bridge. Sakura passed out from the pressure, and Tazuna, who was holding onto the rail sweat, dropped when the girl passed out. She was supposed to protect me. Kami must hate me, he thought. Naruto's jacket and shirt ripped apart from the aura, revealing his now well-toned body. His head was looking down at the ground and his right hand was stretched out. "Come to me. Come to your new wielder," he thought in his mind. In a cave near the coast of Nami, a sheathed katana was laying on a rock until a bluish-purple aura surrounded it and it pulsed. It was kept in a black metal scabbard with a yellow tie hanging from the bottom of it. The wrapping around the hilt was white with black diamond pattern going down the cap to the guard, which like the cap was a brass color. The sword then floated into the air and it headed for the demonic aura it sensed. At the bridge, Naruto's hand was still stretched out and a gleam appeared from the sky and then the katana headed straight for the blonde and it landed into his hand. Naruto felt the sword pulse in his hand and heard a voice whisper to him. A warrior fallen from grace. The power of darkness gives birth to new weapons and skills. In Naruto's mind, flashes of a man with slick back spiky white silver hair, a blue trench coat, wearing all black and an katana in his hand, was standing on the platform of a tower while rain fell from the sky. Another flash appears and he sees the man performing a series of teleporting and slashes while killing strange creatures and then fighting a man with silver white hair like him, only it wasn't slicked back and was wearing a red trench coat and fighting him with what looked a claymore connected with a skeleton that appeared to be the garden hilt. The last flashback that appears is with a man's hair similar to the man in the red trench coat with his sword stabbed into the other man's torso and says this. Might controls everything and without strength you can't protect anyone or anything, let alone yourself. The flashbacks ends after that while Naruto stares at the blade. And the katana. Yamato. Whispered Naruto as the aura started to shrink and only surround his body. Naruto's head rose, revealing a pair of glowing red eyes that were glaring at Gato and his men who were still shivering at his gaze. Naruto then started to slowly walk towards the men. He then speaks in a dark and cold tone. The moment my body changed and my blood awakened, a voice echoed in my head saying power, give me more power, he says walking towards the frightened men while Yamato's pulse becomes faster. If I become a demon then so be it. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her, to protect Haku-chan, even if it means me being in exile. I will not let scum like you put your filthy hands on her or anyone else I care about. He says and places his left hand on the sheath and his right hand on the hilt. A tint of pink appears on Haku's face when she hears him vow to protect her from Gato. He then gets into a Batajutsu stance while glaring at Gato and his thugs. Gato snaps out of his daze and shouts. Kill that brat and bring that bitch to me. The thugs once again yell out and charges at the now silver-haired blonde. Naruto looks at them and a cold smirk appears on his face. Die. He says and instantly draws Yamato and performs a horizontal slash at them and pauses for a moment when an invisible slash heads for them and they stop when they get a funny feeling through their bodies. Naruto then performs a series of slashes at them and then turns his back at them and slowly sheathes his sword. Hey, did you feel that? It felt like we got hit by a. The thug didn't get to finish his sentence when Naruto fully sheathes the sword, a clicking sound from the guard and sheath was heard. Blood, gore and body parts scatter from the thugs, but for those that weren't killed by the invisible attack, ended up losing limbs, as well as get cuts and gashes all over, and were letting out screams of pain and agony until they died. Gato starts to tremble in fear as Naruto turns around and starts to approach the frightened man. Gato tries to turn and run away, but Naruto once again draws the sword and sheathes it instantly. A slash mark appears on the man's back and blood sprays from it. The midget screams out in agony and pain and falls to his knees. Naruto had just skewered the man's spinal column, paralyzed the man from the waist down. Naruto then vanishes and appears with Yamato drawn in front of the man who was now whimpering as he gazed into the glowing red eyes of Naruto. Please don't kill me. I was only kidding about making the girl and women in the village my pets. Please don't kill me. He begged, hoping the boy would let him live to see another day. Naruto just looks at the man and smirks. I have another option for you, Gato. I'll let you go. He says while Gato lets out a sigh of relief, but then his body jerks and he looks down to see a silver blade pierces. There you'll get to meet all kind of demons and monsters that people like you only dream of. He says and pulls the blade out his gut and then swings the sword at his head, loping it off while a fountain of blood sprays from the man's stump of a neck. Gato's head, which had a look of horror on his face, flew off the bridge and into the ocean. The blood from Gato's body gets all over Naruto's body and hair as he watches the body hit the ground with a thud. He then swipes the blood from the sword and sheathes it again. He then brings his hand up and swipes the blood out of his hair. Zabuza, Kakashi, Haku and Tazuna had different expressions on their faces. Most of them were looks of amazement, shock, awe and a little fear. Naruto looks at them and a small smile appears on his face while the aura fades away and his eyes return to normal. It's over. He says and then darkness takes over his vision and he collapsed while hearing Haku cry out his name. Naruto-kun. She says while running towards the unconscious former blonde. 3 days later. Naruto finds himself in his mind again, but the only difference was that it wasn't a sewer, it was similar to a mansion. He walked through the hallway of the place until he saw a door with a kanji seal on it. He then blinks for a while and then opens the door only to see Kyuubi in her hybrid form sitting on a bed with her legs crossed and reading a red-covered book. Her ears twitch and she looks up to see Naruto staring at her and smirks. "Are you done checking me out, Naruto-kun?" she says while the blonde blushes and shakes his head at the vixen. "I didn't come here to flirt, Kyuubi, I came here because you promised to talk to me about my bloodline and what caused you to attack the village." He said in a tone that meant he wasn't in the mood for joking, and she sighs and puts the book down. "Very well, but before we start to chat you need some clothes on first," she said with a smirk on her face. Naruto blinks for a while and looks down, only to see he's in only a pair of black boxers and blushes. He then pictures some clothes into his thoughts, and now he was wearing a blue t-shirt and black pants. "Much better, now come and sit. I have a lot to explain about your heritage," she says, and he does that. When Naruto sits down, a scent of fruits entered his nose, which came from the Kyuubi, and was now holding back a blush and the thoughts that were entering his mind. The Kyuubi raises an eyebrow at this, but decides to ignore it for now. "Okay Naruto, I need you to pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you, but you must not interrupt, okay?" she asks, getting a nod from the blonde. She then snaps her fingers, and the area in front of them became a screen, and on it was a sky that was an orangish yellow color with the sun setting. Good. Now this all started back before even chakra or shinobi existed. 2,000 years ago the human realm and demon realm were at war with the human side losing very badly. She said while the screen flipped to the part where demons were attacking humans who were trying to fight back with strange weapons that fired metal pieces out of them. Then the screen switched to a chamber that was surrounded by darkness and red flames surrounded a throne where a figure with 3 red glowing eyes was sitting on it and was laughing evilly as he watched his minions take down the humans. The one who started this war was the ruler of the demon world and was also known as the Prince of Darkness. His name was Mundus. A demon who wanted to take over the human realm due to his belief that humans were an inferior species. Him and his generals were close to winning the battle until one of his generals had a change of heart and turned against him. When she says that a high-ranking demon was cut down by a double-edged sword. As the creature's figure fell, the one with the sword in his hand was flinging the blood off. He was a human-sized demon with cloven hooves, a semi-reptilian hide, a pair of sweeping horns, 2 pairs of insectoid wings, and 1 pair of chiropteran bat wings. His entire body appears to be made of grey armor with accents and overtones of Tyrian purple and features ornamental decorations such as gold trimming along his crown, a vertical red gem in his forehead, as well as gold knee and elbow guards. He was none other than Sparda, the legendary Dark Knight. He was a demon whose power was on par with Mundus. He betrayed his master and aided the humans in defeating the Dark Emperor. Kyuubi says while they watch Sparda take down demon after demon. He then confronts Mundus and they engage in a battle that made even the heavens tremble. Sparda managed to defeat Mundus and his army of demons and forced them back into the demon realm. He then sealed away the gates that linked the human world to the demon world by using his sword and pouring his power into it. For the next 2,000 years, he spent his time ruling over the humans and eventually met and fell in love with a woman named Eva, she said, and they then saw Sparda at a ball in his human form. His hair was swept back and he is portrayed as wearing a monocle and purple jacket. He was dancing with a woman who had long beautiful blonde hair and blue eyes. Her face and figure were flawless and she was smiling as she danced with Sparda, who also fell in love. After that, she was pregnant with his children. They were twin brothers named Virgil and Dante, the sons of Sparda. She said, and the screen showed 2 twin boys with shoulder-length silver hair. One was wearing blue and the other red. One day, however, Sparda disappeared, leaving Eva with their sons, and when they turned 8, Mundus managed to send a few demons to the human world and killed Eva, leaving her 2 sons alone. They then saw the bloody and dead form of Eva, while Dante and Virgil cried over the lose of their mother. This event changed both Virgil and Dante. Virgil took the path of power while Dante became a demon hunter. Sparda left Dante and Virgil with his other swords, Rebellion and Yamato. The sword you have now is Yamato. It is a sentient blade that is also the key to opening and closing the gates to the demon realm. It can also cut through anything including time and space and taking down someone at long distances, she said while Naruto's eyes widen. If you're wondering, no, you can't do that until you understand the style that goes with the sword, but I'm sure Yamato will help you once you get the basics of swordplay down, she says while the white-haired nin nods. Now instead of explaining Dante's and Virgil's past, I'll tell you about how your family is affiliated with Sparda and his sons. You see Naruto, your father was the one who sealed me inside of because he knew that your blood and power would keep me from escaping. He was Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, and Konoha's Kairoi Senku. When she said that, Naruto's eyes widened in shock and different thoughts went through his head. At first he was angry that his father did this and condemned him to a life of hell, but then he understood why he did it. But what pissed him off even more was that Sarutobi knew this and didn't even bother to tell him, and that the village didn't honor his father's dying wish. He then lets out a frustrating sigh, and Kyuubi then continues. Well then, your father was the son of Dante and a female demon Trish, but when he was born Dante was sucked into a portal to hell, and Trish was attacked and fatally injured by a group of demons that she managed to kill, but was dying slowly. The group of Konohinin who had the symbol of the wind and wave on their vests found her on the verge of dying, and she asked them to take her child and gave them an amulet that Dante gave her to give to Minato. They did that and she died right after handing your father to them. She said, and Naruto's face became sad. Now your father never knew about his demonic heritage, but he was capable of creating and making jutsu that made him feared and respected throughout the shinobi world. Now your father did discover his demonic heritage when he turned 17, but kept it a secret from everyone, even the Hokage. He also would have fully awakened his devil's blood, but then I attacked, and here's the reason why. A man wearing an orange mask and a red cloak that was black and had red clouds on it cast a genjutsu on me. I remember seeing a red eye with 3 tomo on it, so he must have been an uchiha. Anyway, I went berserk and attacked the closest thing, and that was your village. Your father summoned the Shinigami and sealed me into you at the cost of his life. Now about your bloodline. It is called Devil's Blood and it is stronger than any other, but that doesn't make you invincible. Just like any other, you have to work in making it stronger. Now these are the abilities that your bloodline gives you. Since you are now a half-devil, your speed, strength, stamina, reflexes and senses have increased to superhuman levels, as did your healing factor. Even a strike to the heart wouldn't kill you. Also Naruto, while you were unconscious, your body structure changed so it could adapt to the power you awakened when you were at the bridge. So now you'll have the appearance of a 16-year-old, and you're also taller now. She replied while Naruto's eyes grew wide at the info he gained on his father and family and spoke up. What about my mother? What happened to her? Naruto asks while she shrugs. I don't know. It's possible she died giving birth to you, but other than that, I don't know. Sorry kid. She says while the boy gets a downcast look on his face and then looks at Kyuubi. I see. Thanks Kyuubi. He says while she speaks up. Please call me Habara. Kyuubi is my title. So now that I gave you what you wanted to know, can I have what I want? She asks and Naruto looks at her for a moment and then nods. Yeah. A deal's a deal. I'll give you your freedom, but I decide on how much of your power you get, okay? Naruto asks and she nods. I agree. Also I have one more request. She said and Naruto groans. What is it? He asks and a small tint of pink appears on her face. I want you to be my mate. She says, and when those words came out of her mouth, Naruto jumped off the bed and away from her, while his eyes grew to the size of dinner plates. What? Are you serious? You want me to be your mate? Why? He screams out while Habara gets up and walks over to a shocked Naruto and leans over until their faces were inches from each other. Why you? Because I can tell that you'll become strong. Stronger than even Sparda and his sons. I also want to be a mother, but I want a mate who will be stronger than even me, both physically and mentally. That is all I want from you, Naruto-kun. I want a family, and being alone for 4 millenniums is not fun. Who knows? I might actually fall in love with you in the future. She says and caresses his cheek, making him shiver from the contact. She then stops and Naruto looks at her, trying to see if there is any form of deception in her eyes. I'll consider your request, Habara, but if he says, and she finishes. Fall in love with another? I don't mind sharing, plus I like both males and females, so don't worry. She says with a cheeky grin on her face and Naruto gapes like a fish. She then gives him a kiss on the nose and says this. If you ever need me for stress relief, just ask Naruto-kun. I promise you won't regret it. She says in a husky tone while giving him a view of her cleavage. Naruto then starts sputtering while she laughs at him and then he fades out of his mind. Outside world. The sun shined down on Naruto's face and he squints his eyes in pain for a while. He then slowly opens them and looks at the ceiling. He tries to get up only to feel a weight on his chest. He turns his head to see a girl with long silky raven hair sleeping on his chest and was wearing a pink kimono. It was Haku. Haku-chan. He says in his mind and he sees a strand of hair fall in front of her face. He lifts his left hand and brushes it away back into her hair and he hears her stir for a while. She then opens her beautiful brown eyes and sees Naruto smiling back at her. Her eyes widen as he sits up. Haku-chan, what's you oomph? He says and she instantly pulls him into a hug. I'm glad you're awake now, Naruto-kun. She says while he lets out a grunt. Same here, Haku-chan, but can I breathe please? He strains out. She realizes what she was doing and lets go of him while blushing sorry. She says and he chuckles at her. Don't worry about it. Hey, why does my voice sound deeper? He asks and then gets up and looks into a mirror. When he looks into it, his eyes widen in shock. He went from 4'9" to 5'6". He also noticed his face and body had no ounce of baby fat, and his body was ripped also but not overly muscular. His hair was no longer blonde, it was now silver white and it stopped to its shoulders and it still remained spiky. He also had long spiky bangs on the sides of his head. The whisker marks on his face were gone, but he still had his deep blue cerulean eyes and he also had canines jutting out of his upper lip. Haku looks at his back and her blush becomes even redder. Naruto looks back at Haku and asks. "Where's the sword I had with me at the bridge?" Naruto asks. The ice user stops blushing and blinks for a while, then realizes what he meant. "Oh, that sword, it's laying on the corner over there. The Uchiha tried to take it a few days ago, but ended up getting zapped by the sword and so I picked it up and laid it there. Zabuza made sure he didn't try to take it again and I stayed here and looked after you." She answered and Naruto looked over to the corner and saw it laying there. "Oh, okay. Thanks, Haku. I really appreciate you looking out for me while I was unconscious," he says and she blushes in embarrassment. "You're welcome, Naruto-kun. It was the least I could do since you saved my life as well as Zabuza's." She then walks over to the white-haired teen who was now a few inches taller than her and pulls him into another hug. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. Thank you for saving the life of someone who was like a father to me. I don't know how I can ever repay you," she says as tears fell from her eyes. Naruto blushes from the contact and hugs her back. "You're welcome, Haku-chan," he says and hears Hibara speak up. "I know how she can repay you, Naruto-kun, and it involves her stripping down to her underwear and giving you a Hibara. Don't you finish that sentence," he yelled in his mind while she giggles. Naruto's brow twitches and he then turns red. Haku, I know you're enjoying this hug, but can I have some clothes please? I don't want anyone to walk in on us with me in my boxers," he says and when she looks at the awkward position they're in, she eeps, lets him go, and heads to a closet and pulls out a short-sleeved deep blue shirt, black pants and some black ninja sandals and lays them out. Her face was now as red as an apple. "Sorry I let you get changed, Naruto-kun," she says and runs out the room while the blonde blinks a couple of times. He sighs and starts to put on the clothes. "I'm willing to bet that my life is gonna get really interesting after this," he says to himself while putting the shirt on. After the little scene that occurred between Naruto and Haku, the former blonde walks over to Yamato and picks the sword up. The okatana pulses again and Naruto gets a few flashes of the sword style, but then he shakes his head. He walks out of the room and heads downstairs where the others were and walks into the living room and through the kitchen. As he walks in, he sees his teammates, his sensei, Zabuza, Haku, Tsunami, Tazuna, and Inari. They look over and see Naruto, and the now silver-haired genin got different looks from them. From Kakashi, it was shock and confusion. From Sakura, her mouth was now on the ground and was googly-eyed. Sasuke was frowning yet eyeing the sword, wondering where the dead last got such a weapon. Tsunami was blushing a little when she saw his masculine face as did Haku, but she was blushing more because she saw what he looked like without his shirt and pants on. Tazuna eyes were as big as saucers. Inari was shocked at this also. Zabuza had a raised but not visible brow. Naruto blinks at the quietness and rubs the back of his head. Yo," Naruto says in his deeper voice while grinning sheepishly. Inari was the first to snap out of his daze and rushes over to Naruto and glumps the young devil. "Ani-san," Inari cried out and Naruto chuckles and pats his head. "Hey Squirt, how's it going?" he asks while Tsunami smiles at the sight. "Fine. Say why you are taller now and what happened to your hair and the strange marks that were on your face and where did you get that sword?" he asks while jumping up and down only for Naruto to grab his shoulders to stop him from bouncing around so much. Whoa Inari, calm down and I'll explain everything," he says while the boy blinks for a while and nods. Naruto then sighs and looks at everyone. "Okay, the reason my appearance changed is because I activated my bloodline limit," he says getting shocked looks from his teammates and looks of confusion from Tazuna and his family. "You have a bloodline limit, Naruto? I never would have guessed. Can you tell us what it does?" Kakashi asks. "Sure, my bloodline limit is a body-based one which in a sense makes my body stronger than any normal person, meaning my body can go beyond the limits that would kill anyone else," he says while Kakashi's eye widens. "So in other words your body can heal faster and you don't have to worry about permanently damaging any part of your body, right?" Kakashi asks again while Sasuke snorts. "Not much of a bloodline dope," he says with a smirk on his face. "Well, excuse me for not having the eyes of a monkey team," Naruto snaps back while Sasuke scoffs and looks away. "As I was saying, it not improves my body's ability to heal at a higher level, but it also makes me superhuman. My speed, strength, stamina, reflexes, and my 5 senses increase also," he says and cracks his neck. Everyone's eyes widen at that and Kakashi speaks up. "So your bloodline gives you a higher advantage than any other, huh? Interesting," the former Anbu says. Naruto nods at that. Yes, but I'm not invincible, I can still be killed, but it'll be difficult for said person to do it. Zabuza was eyeing the sword Naruto was holding in his left hand. Hey kid, at the bridge that sword appeared in your hand. Any idea how that happened? The demon of the mist asked, and now Naruto was cursing inwardly, forgetting he still had the sword with him. I don't know. Maybe it was attracted to the power I released on the bridge. That's the only option I can come up with. Again Sasuke spoke up. Then give it to me, dope. A sword like that shouldn't be in your hands. He says, and Naruto frowns at him. No, I won't. The sword chooses me as its wielder and it will stay that way. The former blonde says, and Sasuke sneers at the blonde. Plus you already tried to steal it once, didn't you? Naruto asks, and that was when Zabuza glares at the spoiled brat, as does Haku, since she had to threaten the Uchiha by saying she would change his gender if he didn't stay away from Naruto. And what if I did? Sasuke says with a smirk on his face. Naruto wanted to curse the boy out, but not in front of Inari. You know what? Screw it. I have more important things to do than deal with your ego, Uchiha. I'm going out to work on my skills. Something you two should do since you Sasuke got your ass handed to you by Haku-chan here. He said while a tint of pink appeared on Haku's face while Sasuke growled at Naruto. Sakura wanted to yell at Naruto for insulting her Sasuke-kun but shut it up when she saw the ice user glare at her. Naruto then stretches his arms out. Well, I'm off to get some exercise, sensei. He says, and Kakashi nods until the Uchiha speaks up again. Why is the loser going out to train and not me? Sasuke asks, only for Kakashi to let out a frustrating sigh. Sasuke, Naruto needs to know how his bloodline works, and it's possible that when he released it, it ruined his chakra control, am I right, Naruto? Kakashi asks and Naruto nods. Yeah, I need to work on it again. Hey Haku-chan, do you mind helping me out? He asks her and Haku nods, but her cheeks were still pink. Zabuza saw this and was inwardly groaning. Oh, don't tell me she has a crush on Nagaki. Great. Just great. Well, at least it's not the Uchiha. I'd have to strangle that brat if he even thought about touching Haku. He thought, and Haku left with Naruto to train in the forest. Zabuza gets up also and walks out. I'll keep an eye on Nagaki. He says and shunshuns away. Kakashi was skeptical at first, but then he sighs. Zabuza might be a missing nin, but he hasn't shown any hostility towards them since Naruto saved Haku from being raped by Geto and his henchmen. Meanwhile, Haku was leading Naruto through the forest of Nami no Kuni, and then they stop. Haku turns around and looks at the silver-haired nin. Okay Naruto-kun, what chakra exercises do you know? She asks. Tree walking, why? He responds. Okay, I want you to try and walk up that tree now. She says, getting a nod from him. He does a ram seal and focuses his chakra yokai into his feet. When he's certain he has the exact amount, he then walks towards the tallest tree and places his right foot on the trunk first. Then he places his second one on there and starts to walk up the tree. Haku watches as he walks up it but slides down a few times until he reaches a tree branch. He then sits on the tree branch and looks down at Haku. How was that? The young devil asks. A small smile appears on her face and she speaks up. Very good, but you did slip a few times. Try doing it a couple more times and not slip. She says while Naruto nods. Inari was grinning and gives Naruto a thumbs up. He keeps doing this for the next hour and a half until he stops slipping. Naruto then jumps off of the branch and lands near Haku. Good Naruto-kun. Now let's try water walking. She then motions him to follow her near a lake which was very clear. Now this one is different from tree walking due to the structure of the surfaces. You'll have to focus even more chakra into your feet or else you'll end up getting soaked. I'll give you an example. She says and then does a ram seal and focuses chakra into her feet. She then takes one step into the water and then another. Naruto's eyes widen in amazement when he saw this. Inari's jaw drops when he saw Haku walking on water. Haku then walks back towards him while walking on the water and she walks back on the solid ground. Now you give it a try. She says and he nods. Before he did that though, he takes off his shirt, revealing his ripped body and his sandals. A tint of pink appears on Haku's face, but she shakes it off while he performs the ram seal and adds chakra to his feet. Naruto then walks over to the lake and places his right foot in the water and stumbles a little and adds more chakra to his foot. He does the same for his other foot and then stumbles across the lake a few times with the water barely above his ankles. Man, this is tough. I'll just have to add a little more chakra. He says and focuses even more chakra to his feet. Meanwhile, Zabuza was watching this from a tree trunk and was impressed with the boy. He had potential and was thinking about teaching the kid Kenjutsu but wants to see how well he does in the chakra exercise. When the bottom of Naruto's feet is on the surface he grins. Yes. I got it, he started to say until splash. Naruto went under. Haku's eye widened in shock and was about to dive in until another splash came and Naruto was now in the air waving his hands and legs around the air frantically. Cold. Kami, this lake is cold. He screams and runs out of the lake and starts to rub his freezing body like it had ice all over. Haku was covering her mouth trying not to laugh while Zabuza snorted at this while Habara was laughing her butt off, calling her container a baka. Haku pulls out a scroll and unrolls it. A towel appears and she hands it to Naruto, who takes it and rubs it all over his freezing body. He then goes back at it during the whole day and after falling into the water a few times he completes the exercise. Now he is lying back on the ground, letting the sun's rays dry him off. Haku was watching this and couldn't help but admit how cute he looks. Was she developing a crush on him? Why now of all times? She barely knew him, but she couldn't help but feel a connection to him. Naruto then gets up and brushes his hair back and swipes the water off of it. He then gets up and puts his shirt back on and grabs Yamato. Looks like the sun is setting. Ready to go, Haku-chan? Naruto asks her and she nods. Hi. Tomorrow I'll teach you how to fight on water while avoiding projectiles and physical attacks. She says and Naruto nods and they head back to the bridge builder's house. For the next 3 days Haku helps Naruto improve his chakra control and jutsu. She also taught him some of the basics to the human anatomy and how to use senbon. Apparently, they started to get closer to each other without even realizing it. Midnight. Naruto was currently sleeping in his bed wearing only a sleeveless shirt and a pair of shorts. Little did he know that the door creaked open and a shadowy figure crept up at him. It then reached for his shoulder and nudged him. It was Haku. The silver-haired nin lets out a groan and moves around in the bed. Haku nudges him a little harder and he blinks his eyes a few times and turns his head to see Haku looking down at him. Her hair was tied back into a ponytail and she was wearing a deep blue tank top that showed off her curves and her developed cupped breasts. She also wore a pair of black shorts that showed off her flawless legs. Naruto had to hold back the blush he was having as he looked at Haku. Hey Haku-chan, what's up? Naruto asks and she rubs her arm in embarrassment. Naruto-kun, I had a nightmare and I was wondering if I can stay the night with you? She asks with a blush on her face and Naruto does the same. Sure, if it makes you comfortable. He responds. A small smile appears on her face and she climbs into the bed with him. Haku then wraps her arms around his waist, pushes her body against his. She then rests her head on his chest. Naruto was shocked at how forward Haku was being and his face was heating up and he felt his friend waking up from the contact of the opposite sex and Naruto was now sweating bullets on the inside. Oh hell no. Not now. Damn puberty and damn teenage hormones. Now Haku-chan will think I'm a pervert. Please don't let her notice and castrate me. He ranted in his mind. Habara was seeing this and an evil grin appeared on her face. She started to put images of Naruto and Haku being intimate. The silver-haired Hanyu was now blushing up a storm and cursing Habara for sending these images. Haku blushed when she felt Naruto's friend poking her and she was groaning inside her mind. Oh Kami, he's poking me. Maybe I shouldn't have been so forward. Damn puberty and hormones. I blame Zabuza too for this and making me read those stupid orange perverted books. Said Demon of the Mist was sleeping on the couch and sneezed. Habara, no Yoko, stop with the images. He yelled in his mind while she giggled. I was only teasing you, my future mate. She says while the former blonde lets out a frustrating sigh. Naruto then wraps an arm around her waist, making her tense a little, but relaxes. Haku, if I'm making you uncomfortable then let me know, okay? He asks and she nods but then speaks up. Actually Naruto-kun, I was wondering if I can thank you for saving my life a few days ago at the bridge. She asks and he blinks in confusion. You already did, Haku-chan. He says and she shakes her head, then sits on top of his waist, shocking him. Not through words Naruto-kun but through another way. She says and he sputters, but we don't you think we're rushing this, Haku-chan? He asks and she raises an eyebrow but then realizes what he meant. Are you talking about us being a couple? She asks and he lets out a gulp and nods. Hi. He says and she smiles at him. I would love to be your girlfriend, Naruto-kun. Is that what you want to ask? She asks him and again he nods. I don't want you to think I'm rushing this, Haku, I mean, we've gotten close during those 4 days, I just didn't think you'd see me that way. He says and she giggles and kisses him on the lips lightly. Well, I do. So are you gonna let me thank you or what? We don't have to be that intimate now, Naruto-kun. At least until we get to know each other better. She says with a cheeky grin on her face. Naruto lets out a sigh of relief and Haku leans over and kisses him on the lips even more. Naruto returns it and places his hands on her waist. They continue the makeout session for a few minutes and then stop. Naruto sits up and pulls her closer and kisses her on the lips more. Haku wraps her arms around his neck and brushes her hands against his soft silver white hair. Naruto brushes his hands against her legs, getting a low moan from her. He slips his hand under her shirt and starts to caress her flat and well-toned stomach, making her shiver as she felt him move his hand up and down her torso. They stop kissing each other and Naruto looks into her beautiful brown orbs and she looks into his cerulean eyes. Naruto removes his hand from under her shirt and places his hands near the button of her shorts. Haku looks down and watches as he plays with the button and zipper for a while and then unbuttons the shorts in her zipper and sees that she is wearing a pair of blue panties under them. He then lays her on her back and pins her arms down with one hand. He then grabs the hem of her shirt with his other hand and lifts it up, revealing her flawless ivory skin-colored stomach, and Naruto noticed a few abs she had. He then leans down and starts to kiss her stomach while Haku squirms and giggles. He keeps doing this for a while and he then kisses and licks her navel and she giggles even louder. "That tickles," she says and Naruto stops and then sits on top of her. They once again engage in a lip-locking session while their hands roam around their bodies. After that, they snuggled up with Haku resting her head on the crook of his neck while he rested his head on top of hers, inhaling the scent of her hair which smelled like vanilla and honey. Morning. Naruto blinks his eyes and groans. He feels some weight on top of his bodies and opens his eyes to see the sleeping form of Haku with her arms wrapped around his waist. He couldn't help but smile at the sight because she looked like an angel. He kisses her on the forehead and she stirs for a while and opens her eyes. She looks up at Naruto and smiles. "Hey," he says and she kisses him on the cheek. "Hey," she said back and got up of the bed and stretches. Naruto sits up and yawns, cracking his neck. He then gets up. "I'm gonna go get changed, Naruto-kun," she says and walks out of his room. Naruto walks towards the closet and pulls out a dark red shirt and a pair of black cargo shorts that stop to his knees. He then puts on some sandals and grabs Yamato, leaving his other stuff in his room. As he headed downstairs, he saw Haku helping Tsunami cook dinner while Sasuke and Sakura were sitting at the table eating until they saw Naruto. Sakura was looking away from him trying to hold down the blush she was getting and Sasuke just sneered at him. Naruto shrugs off the sneer until he saw Kakashi who was reading his book. "Yo Naruto. I see you're doing well. How is your training going?" he asks and the silver teenager shrugs. "It's actually going well. My chakra control is improving thanks to Haku-chan," he says while she blushes. Kakashi sees this and smiles. "Oh yes, Zabuza wanted you and Haku to meet him in the forest after breakfast," he says while Naruto nods until Sakura speaks up. "Sensei, don't you think we should be more wary of that man? He is a missing nin after all," she asks while Kakashi sighs. "Sakura, if Zabuza wanted to kill us, he would have done it already when we were sleeping. So once we're done, we'll be going out to the field and work on your skills also," he says getting a smirk from the uchiha who thought he was gonna get better training than the dead last. After eating, Haku left with Naruto and headed into the forest where the lake was. Forest of Nami no Kuni. Zabuza was currently sitting on a log with his sword impaled into the ground and his eyes closed. Haku and Naruto appeared and he spoke up. "Good, you're both here," he says and opens his eyes. "Now the reason why I called you out here, Gaki, is because I plan on teaching you Kinjutsu until the bridge is finished. If you show any improvement, I'll consider teaching you the Muin Satsujin Jutsu, Silent Killing Jutsu, and a few Suitin Jutsu," he says getting a wide-eyed look from the blonde. Zabuza then pulls out a scroll and opens it. In a puff of smoke, two bakken, wooden swords, appear and he grabs one and tosses the other to Naruto who catches it. "You remember the phrase crawl before you walk and walk before you run? The same goes for swords play. You're gonna learn the basics of it first before we even go on to the more advanced parts, and trust me when I say it's not easy," he says while Naruto nods. So during most of the morning, Zabuza was teaching Naruto the basic sword katas and was very impressed with how well he was learning them. The Gaki must have a photographic memory. It usually takes a beginner a week to get the basic sword katas down. If he can understand the basics already, then he'll be a force to be reckoned with when he masters the intermediate and advanced forms. And when that happens, I'll be in for one hell of a sword fight. The demon of the mist thought while he watched Naruto work on the kata with a water clone. "Alright Gaki, take a 5-minute break," he called out to the silver-haired teenager who nods and lets out a sigh of relief and wipes the sweat off his forehead with his arm. Haku walks over and gives him a bottle of water. "Thanks Haku-chan," Naruto says and takes the bottle and gulps down the water in it. Naruto then sits on a log as does Haku and he rests his head on her shoulder, getting a blush from the girl. Zabuza saw this and was grinning under his mask. "Blackmail. I'm never gonna let her live this down," he thought and chuckles to himself. After the 5-minute break was over, Naruto went back to practicing the sword katas and then did some physical exercises like push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and curl-ups. The afternoon came and the three headed back to the bridge builder's house to get some lunch. Zabuza opened the door first and Tsunami was in the kitchen making some lunch. She hears the door open and sees Naruto, Zabuza and Haku. Welcome back. How was the training? She asks and Naruto rubs his in mock pain. Painful? He says only to get smacked in the head by Zabuza. Stop crying brat. Pain is good for you. He says while Haku giggles at her boyfriend who mumbles. I have lunch ready if you're hungry. She says and comes out with 3 plates of onigiri and sets them on the table. Thank you Tsunami-san. Haku said while Naruto and Zabuza nodded a thanks and started to eat. After eating Haku helped Tsunami with the dishes while Zabuza slept on the couch. Naruto was sitting on the floor with Yamato in his lap in a lotus position. The sword glowed a bluish-purple color as Naruto bonded with the sword. Mindscape. Naruto was now in his mindscape standing in the middle of a field with Yamato in his hand. The sword glowed and then it floated out of his hand and in front of him. The blade then glowed even brighter and then formed into a human shape. The glow faded and standing in front of Naruto was a silver-haired man. His hair was slicked back and spiky and was wearing all black from his shirt to his boots and wore a blue long coat with 3 tails and a snake-like pattern on the right side of the jacket. He looked at Naruto who was shocked and spoke up. Hello descendant of Sparda. He says in monotone while Naruto blinks and then smiles. So you're Yamato huh? I wonder why you're taking the form of Virgil Sparda. He asks and Yamato speaks. He was the last one to wield me, but he could never use my power at its fullest due to his desire to gain power no matter the cost, but that was due to the fact that he blamed himself for not being strong enough to save his mother. Do you remember when you used me to kill those ninja on the bridge? You were able to use a small amount of my power then, but that was due to your devil's blood awakening. He says and Naruto nods. I'm sure you were told by Hibara that I can cut through anything including the fabric of space. But that's not all. I can also cut down targets without even touching them. When you continue your training, I'll be teaching you and passing on the knowledge of the style my previous wielders used. It's called the Dark Slayer style. It's normally based on teleportation, but it is difficult to master. He explained while Naruto's eyes widen in shock. So this style basically gives me the ability to disappear and appear before my enemies? Naruto asks and the sword nods. Yes it does also the sword style basically used is based on attacking with the sword and the sheath. He says getting a nod from the young devil. Remember this though Naruto, you control the devil's power, it doesn't control you. He says and transforms back into the Okatana and lands back into Naruto's hand. Outside world. Naruto opens his eyes and then sits up and sees Zabuza still sleeping on the couch. He twitches and walks over to the man and knocks him upside the head with Yamato's sheath. Zabuza get up rubbing the lump on his head and glares at Naruto. So are you ready or do you need to count more sheep? He asks and Zabuza grumbles and gets up, grabbing his Zanbatsu. Come on Haku. He calls out and she joins them outside to continue Naruto's training. It was now 6:00 PM and Team 7 were waiting for Naruto, Zabuza, and Haku to show up. Kakashi was sitting on the couch reading his book and Sasuke was brooding while Sakura was groaning from the training they did. Where is the dope at? Sasuke asks. He's probably still out training. Kakashi replies and the uchiha scoffs. What for? He's weak. He says while his loyal fangirl nods. Don't speak that way about your teammate Sasuke. After all he was the one who killed Geto and his men while you were unconscious. He says and turns the page in his book and Sasuke growls. Only because of that sword's power. I should have it not that nobody. He growls and ends up getting a glare from Kakashi. If I recall Sasuke you ended up getting fried by the sword when you tried to steal it now shut it Genin. He says while the uchiha snorts and looks the other way. The door opened and Zabuza was the first to enter the house while Naruto walked in carrying Haku on his back. Yo. He says while Kakashi looks up and smiles. I see you and Haku are getting along well Naruto. Kakashi says while the two blush and Naruto mumbles about perverted senseis not minding their own business and Haku sticks her tongue at the man who just laughs at them. So how did the Kenjutsu training go Naruto? Kakashi asks and a smirk appears on the silver-haired Genin's face. Going good, I got the basic katas down already. He says and Kakashi's eye widens, but then he smiles. That's very impressive Naruto. To get the basic katas for Kenjutsu down in less than a day is very good, especially for someone your age. He complimented while Naruto grinned. Thanks. So what did Sasuke and Sakura do? He asks and the prick spoke up. None of your business dope. Sasuke says and Naruto is silent for a moment before saying. Huh? Did you say something uchiha? Naruto asks in a lazy tone while Sasuke's brow twitches and Haku giggles. In Kakashi's head, a chibi form of himself was bouncing up and down and waving a flag that said favorite student in kanji. After that little scene, they all had dinner and then headed off to bed. Haku once again was staying the night in Naruto's room and was resting her head on his chest while Naruto had an arm around her waist. Naruto was currently in his mindscape, walking around the house only to see Haibara sleeping on the bed, resting her head on her tails, using them like a pillow. He walks towards her and watches as her ears twitch and in his opinion, made her look cute. He sees a strand of her red hair fall in front of her face and then he sits on the side of the bed and he reaches out and swipes it back into her hair. She then opens her eyes slowly to see the silver-haired teenager looking at her and a grin appears on her face. "Why hello there Naruto-kun. I was beginning to think you forgot about me," she says with a pout on her face while the blonde chuckles. He then scratches her behind her right ear and she lets out a low purr and presses her head against his hand. Naruto stops doing it and she looks up at him with a frustrated expression because she was enjoying that. "I came here to put up my end of the deal Haibara and it was your freedom. However, whenever you want to come out, I get to decide how many tails you get to have. Does that sound fair?" he asks. Haibara just shrugs and then sits up to stretch, showing off her cleavage and assets that were held in by a sleeveless red shirt. Naruto ends up turning his head so that she doesn't think he's a pervert. A sly grin appears on her face and she sits up and rests her head on his shoulder. "Don't be afraid my future mate. I won't bite unless you want me to. I also recall saying that if you want to use me for stress relief, you can." She purred into his ear making him shiver. She giggles and wraps her arms around his neck and breathes in his scent. "Also Naruto-kun, I plan on teaching you an art only our kind can use. They are called Kido or demon spells. They are ranked differently than ninjutsu are, with number 1 being the weakest and 100 being the strongest. There are 3 different forms of the demon arts and they are ways of destruction which are offensive, binding arts which are defensive or can be used to trap the target, and the healing arts. When you release me from the seal, I'll start you off from 1 to 25 and see how far you get from there, okay?" she asks and the blonde nods. "Tomorrow I'll be giving you something that'll be similar to Yamato and it is called a devil arm," she said. Naruto's eyes widen when he hears that and then speaks up. "What's a devil arm?" he asks and she then holds him even closer. "A devil arm is a weapon you gain after you defeat a powerful demon. You gain its soul and it either becomes a powerful weapon or gives you a style," she says. "Like the Dark Slayer style I gained from Yamato?" Naruto asks and she nods. "Yes, like that one. I'll be making one out of my chakra, but in order for you to gain it, you must face and defeat a doppelganger I created from my chakra. Only then will I give you the devil arm," she says and he nods. "Sounds fair. So is there anything else you want?" he asks and she giggles and kisses him on the lips. "Nothing I can think of, but you need to wake up because your girlfriend is getting close to kissing you in a place that'll make you very happy," she says and the blonde's eyes widen in shock and he then vanishes from his mindscape. Best room. Naruto suddenly opens his eyes and sees Haku, who is grinding her hips against his while kissing his chest and abs. His eyes become the size of dinner plates even more when she starts to unzip his shorts until he grabs her hands. Haku suddenly stops and then looks up at Naruto, who let out a sigh of relief. Haku was blinking in confusion and looks around. "Naruto-kun, what was I doing?" she asks and he points down and she follows his hand down to his unzipped pants and she turns red. "Oh Kami, did I?" she asks with a panicked look on her face and Naruto shakes his head while she lets out a sigh of relief. "I thought I was dreaming at first. Kami, what is wrong with me?" she asks and sits up with a blush on her face. "Good thing I stopped you Haku-chan, because if I didn't you would have made me very happy," he says in a joking manner and she glows red at the thought. He then wraps an arm around her waist and pulls her on his lap. "Don't feel embarrassed Haku-chan. It could have been worse. It could have me in your position," he says and kisses her cheek while she elbows him in the side. "Pervert," she says while smiling at him. Naruto chuckles and kisses her back. "I blame puberty," he says and tickles her sides and gets a giggle from her. "Stop that," she says and he does. "Haku, there's something I need to tell you about me," he says and she blinks in confusion. "Tell me what?" she asks and Naruto lets out a sigh and starts to explain how his father sealed the Kyuubi no Kitsune into him and how he was treated like a plague sign the day he could walk. After that Haku had a look of shock and horror on her face and Naruto looked at the bed sheets with a look of sorrow and sadness on his face. That was when Haku pulled him into a hug while he quietly cried onto her shoulder. After that they fell back asleep with Naruto holding Haku close. Morning. Naruto woke up and saw Haku snuggling up to him. He then switches himself with a Kage Bushin and changes into his deep blue shirt and black pants. He grabs Yamato and leaps out of the window and heads to the open field. Open field. Naruto was sitting in the middle of the field meditating while Yamato was feeding him knowledge on the Dark Slayer style and how to use Yamato. During that time red Yaokai oozed out of his body and floats away from him and lands on the ground and starts to form. The Yaokai glows and a flash appear around the field and then dies out. Before him stood a 9-foot red-furred creature that looked like a werewolf, only it had the appearance of a fox. The werfox opens his red slitted eyes and growls at Naruto, who opens his and smirks. The werfox flexes its claws while its tail slammed onto the ground, creating a small crack in it. It then snorts red fire out of its nostrils while Naruto's eyes become as cold as ice and his expression becomes emotionless. "So you're the one I must defeat in order to gain Hitam's devil arm, correct?" he asks in an emotionless voice. The werfox nods and then speaks. "So you are the last of his kin. The one who betrayed his people for a bunch of fragile flesh bags. It's a shame I never got to face his sons, but you'll do. I am Keen, the demon fox of hellfire," he says and rears his head back to shoot out a streak of red-hot fire out of his mouth while a heat wave is released from his body and the fire passes by Naruto, who doesn't even wince from the heat. When the heat dies down, the bipedal fox looks down at Naruto, who chuckles. "Impressive display of firepower. A certain Uchiha on my team would probably have a fit if he saw what you did," he said while the fox snorts. "I suggest you get ready to face me seriously, seed of Sparda, or I will reduce you to ashes," he says and lunges at Naruto and swipes at him with his flaming claws. Naruto leaps over the demon and twirls in midair. He then lands on his feet and then places his right hand on Yamato's hilt. "So you want a piece of me literally, eh?" he asks out loud, and the fox turns around and responds by letting out a roar. A reddish-orange circle appears under them and transports them to an arena that's surrounded by mountains, and the ground was black and had red cracks in them. Naruto looks around and chuckles. "Okay then, come and get it if you can," he says while pressing his left thumb under the guard and clicks it up while smirking. Battle theme sworn through swords, be real battle. Keen lets out a roar and charges at Naruto on all fours while said heir of Sparta waits for the fox to come closer. Keen rears his fist back and it ignites into a fiery blaze. He brings it down on Naruto, who disappears in a blur while the fist crashes into the ground and a pillar of fire rises from the attack. Naruto appears above Keen and draws Yamato. He then lands on the ground and charges at Keen, who removes his fist from the attack he just performed and swings his tail at him. Naruto leaps over it and brings Yamato down and slashes Keen across his right arm. Said fox grunts out in pain and swipes at Naruto with his left arm. Naruto ducks and then slashes him across the chest and vanishes when Keen shoots fire from his mouth. He lands on a large boulder while Keen opens his mouth again and was charging up a fire orb that was in his mouth. He unleashes a large fireball from his mouth and the red fireball heads towards Naruto at a fast rate. Naruto performs trick up to avoid the attack, which destroys the rock, leaving a smoking crater. Naruto lands on the ground and then plants Yamato on the ground and performs a few hand seals. Suiton. Tepidama. Naruto then fires off a few water bullets at the fox, and when they hit, Keen lets out a howl as steam rises from his body. "Gra. You cursed half-breed," he snarls while both of his hands are ignited by red fire and slams them into the ground. Naruto pulls Yamato out of the ground and his eyes widen when a pillar of fire rises from the ground and turns into a spinning funnel and heads for Naruto at a fast pace. The funnel leaves a trail of fire in its path as it heads for Naruto, who was cursing and barely avoids it. His left arm gets singed by the fire and he hisses in pain. Keen smirks and then charges on all fours at the blonde. Yamato glows a bluish-purple color in Naruto's hand and he charges also. Keen slashes at him with his blazing claw, but Naruto skids on the ground, stabs Yamato into Keen's chest, and the blade moves all the way down to his torso and he slashes downward while blood sprays from the fox's chest. Naruto then plants his hand on the ground and pushes upward in midair and lands back on his feet while twirling Yamato. Keen staggers from the serious injury and collapses. Naruto smirks at this, and the demon struggles to get back up while clutching his injured chest and torso. Naruto starts to run towards Keen and increases his speed. Rapid slash. Naruto cries out and starts to swing Yamato in different directions, while the invisible slashes leave cuts and gashes on Keen's body. Said demon grits his teeth in pain, and when he turns around, Naruto slices through his chest twice, leaving an X-shaped slash on his chest. The blonde skids forward for a while and stops while twirling Yamato and sheathing the sword slowly. He then clicks it shut when it's fully sheathed and blood sprays out from every cut and gash from Keen's body. Keen coughs up a large amount of blood and falls to his knees while panting heavily. Naruto then walks over to the down fox, who turns his head at the blonde and grins. "No more heir of Sparta. You have proven the fact that the blood of Sparta is still strong. I surrender," he says, and Naruto nods at the fallen demon. "Here is your reward, young Sparta, the power over hellfire, courtesy to Hibara-sama," he says, and his body glows and becomes an orb of red fire. Naruto holds his hand out as the orb heads towards his extended arm, and when it makes contact, a bright light surrounds him and the arena, and when it clears, he finds himself back on the field and realizes that he's wearing a pair of gauntlets and greaves on his arms and legs. They were deep red and had an outline that changed from orange to yellow simultaneously. The greaves were the same, only they had two pairs of what looked like miniature buzz saws on the heel part, combination of Beowulf and Gilgamesh. Naruto also had a mask that covered half of his bottom face. When he clenches his fists, a pair of 3 orange glowing claws jut out and then retract as does the mask. Naruto grins and then gets into taijutsu stance with his right arm back and his left arm out with the palm open and his legs spread apart slightly. His right hand then glows red and then with a battle cry, he swings it forward and a huge red fireball shoots out of the gauntlet and ascends towards a large boulder. When it makes contact, the rock explodes and sends debris in every direction. Naruto remains in the stance for a while and then performs a series of roundhouse kicks while fire trails across his heel, getting wider and longer. He then stops and then crouches with his right arm pulled back and performs a rising uppercut. The fire emitting from the attack creates a blazing trail of flames which die out and Naruto then pauses in midair and then rolls into a bowl with his right leg sticking out and does a revolving kick with fire trailing around him. His body moves downward while performing this and when he's close to the ground, he plants his right foot and arm on the ground and a powerful heat wave and flames spread outwards, burning grass and the ground as it spread and dissipates. Naruto gets up slowly and then he cups his hands together with his legs spread apart and looks towards the sky. An orb of red and white fire appears around his cupped hands. Ha! Naruto cries out as he shoots his hands forward, releasing a powerful fireball into the sky, making it resemble a comet heading for the sky. The fireball then explodes and a miniature fireball shower down from the sky in different directions. Naruto then sits up and looks at the gauntlets again and chuckles. Nice Habara. Very nice. He says while she giggles. He then feels a tug on his stomach and he lifts his shirt and sees the seal glow white and then a red orb pops out from it and forms into a red furred kit with red slitted eyes and 2 tails swishing behind it. Naruto looks at the kit for a while and blinks and he puts his shirt down. Hi Habara. He asks and the kid eye smiles and then leaps on Naruto's shoulder and licks his cheek. The gauntlets and greaves disappear and he rubs her behind the ear, getting a purr from her. I love having my ears scratched. She purrs out while he chuckles. I know you do Habara-chan. So do you have a human form? He asks while she nods while still purring. Yamato appears, strapped to his waist, and he heads back to Tezuna's house with Habara cuddled up in his arms. Naruto was now walking back to the bridge builder's house, with Habara cuddled up in his arms sleeping while her ears twitched occasionally. Naruto pushed the door open and saw Kakashi and Zabuza arm wrestling on the kitchen table. Sasuke was on the couch brooding, Sakura was ogling him, and Haku was sewing in a tear that Naruto had in one of his pants. As Naruto closed the door, the Uchiha looked up and frowned at Naruto and Sakura just blinks at him. Where have you been, dope? The emo asks only for Naruto to snort at Sasuke. If you must know, king of emos, I went to for a morning jog. Haku looks up and sees Naruto with a fox kid in his arms. She suddenly appeared in front of Naruto and Habara with hearts in her eyes as she saw the 2-tailed fox. Kawaii, she's so adorable. She cried out, waking Habara up. She saw the hearts in Haku's eyes and sweat dropped. Why did she wake me up? I was having a good nap. She whined inwardly. Can I hold her, Naruto-kun? She asks with her lip out and did the puppy eyes jutsu on her boyfriend. Sure Haku-chan. He says and Habara turns her head to look at Naruto in shock and yips. Sorry Habara. It's either Haku cuddling you or Sakura. He said telepathically and her ears fell down and glared at Naruto. Haku took her out of Naruto's arms and cuddled the fox while rubbing her behind the ear, getting a purr from Habara. Haku giggled at this but looked at the 2 tails she had. Naruto-kun, why does this fox have 2 tails? She asks and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh, the tails. Well it's a genetic mutation. I saw her being harassed by a flock of crows after my jog and chased them off. After that she followed me back to the compound. I decided to keep her with me until we got back to Konoha. He said while Haku looks at him for a while and smiles. Then she returns to cuddling and petting the fox, saying how cute and adorable she was. Zabuza managed to win the arm wrestling match and Kakashi groaned while rubbing his arm. So where is Inari, Tsunami and Tazuna? He asks and Kakashi spoke up. Tazuna and his co-workers are finished with the bridge and Tsunami and Inari are in the town getting a few things. I sent a few shadow clones to watch out for them. He stated and Naruto nodded. Well I'm gonna go take a shower sensei. He said and the copy nin nodded. Naruto then headed upstairs to take his shower. Habara brushes one of her tails against Haku's neck and she giggles and continues to stroke her back and ears and saying how cute she was while Zabuza and Kakashi sweat drop. Is she always this bubbly? Kakashi asks while the demon of the mist sighs. Sadly yes. She's gonna spoil that fox to death. That's probably why her rabbit always ran away. He said. Naruto finally finished with his shower and headed back downstairs. Kakashi was reading his book while Zabuza was asleep with his sword leaned against the wall. Sakura was filing her nails, and Sasuke was just glaring at the wall. Hibara was sleeping on an empty couch with her ears twitching occasionally. "Hey, where's Haku-sensei?" Naruto asks, and the silver-haired nin looks up at his student. "Oh, she went to get some herbs for Tsunami-san in the forest. Tazuna is now on his lunch break and I think Inari is fishing near the docks with some of the other kids." He answered. "I see. Well, I'm gonna go practice my kata-sensei. Don't worry, I'll be closer to the house in case you need to find me." He answers and Kakashi nods. "Hey, wait a minute, Naruto. Why are you going out train on your own? Why don't you ask us to train? We're your teammates." Sakura asks and Naruto just raises an eyebrow at her. "I believe that's none of your business, Sakura, but if you must know, I need to keep training until my body can adapt to my bloodline. And the reason why I don't ask you or Mr. High and Mighty to train with me is because I don't want you distracting me or having Sasuke copying what I learned, no offense to you, Kakashi-sensei." Naruto says while the copy nin just waves his hand at him as a gesture that he didn't take offense to it. Sasuke on the other hand just scoffs at him. "Like I would use my Sharingan to copy your pathetic moves, dope," Sasuke says, and Naruto rolls his eyes at the boy. "Just because you activated your eyes doesn't make you stronger, team. It just makes you more arrogant. You keep acting the way you are and you'll end up dead," he says and walks out the front door while Sasuke growls at the silver white-haired teenager. "Who does the dead last think he is talking to me like that? I'm an uchiha and possess the most powerful bloodline to ever exist. His power is nothing compared to mine. Just you wait, dope. I'll prove to you whose bloodline is the weakest," he thought as he planned on how to find out how great his teammate's power was. The forest of chakra. Naruto walked into the clearing with Yamato strapped to his belt. Hibara appears in a swirl of fire in her fox form, wagging her two tails. "Are you gonna work on using the devil arm you gained from the chakra creature you defeated?" she asks and Naruto nods. "Yep. I'm also gonna work on some of the styles I'm learning from Yamato. I'm at level 1 in the Dark Slayer style and I've started on the second level. It's tough though because it is based on mostly speed, evasion, and you have to have good timing and reflexes in striking the target or avoiding them," he says while Hibara smiles. "No one said it would be easy, Naruto-kun. My devil arm is a melee and elemental based weapon, but it increases your speed and strength, not that you need it since you're a devil or for now half devil," she says and Naruto looks at Hibara and asks a question. "Say Hibara, I have a question." Hibara looks at him and tilts her head to the side. "What is the difference between a demon and a devil? Aren't they of the same class?" he asks and the Biju shakes her head. "No, Naruto-kun, demons and devils are of a whole different class. You see, the difference between a demon and a devil is that demons are mostly violent and crave mayhem and destruction, while devils, even though they can be just as destructive as demons, are more intelligent and only fight when they have to, and they can choose whether or not they want to be good or evil. They also try to avoid a fight," she explained and he blinks. "I see, but what about you? Aren't you a demon or are you of a higher class?" he asks her. "Yes. I along with the other 8 Biju are of a higher class of demons called Daiukai or great demons, but we too can be like our lower raced kin, but we can control our urges. You see, Naruto, we classify ourselves into classes like you do the missing or allied nin of your village, but there's a difference when it comes to our power." Naruto blinks and sits down so she can explain. "Really? So demons are ranked by class like the ninja are? Care to explain?" That was when she started to speak. "Okay, here's the ranking class. The rank of a demon is based off its level of intelligence and power. The ranks are based off of the letters, and they are E, D, C, B, A, S, SS, and SSS. B and D rank demons are the weakest of their kind, and they crave human flesh and blood. They are weak alone, but in a group they are a pain to fight. C-class demons have some level of intellect and strength, but they still crave blood only to a lesser extent. B-class demons have both intellect and strength that is equal, and do not rely on their basic instincts to fight. A-class demons also have heightened intellect and full control of their power, and are a force to be reckoned with. Now comes the last 3 ranks, and trust me when I say, Naruto-kun, that these 3 are the last you ever want to face. They are the S, SS, and SSS. S-class demons are very powerful, and you should never, not even for a second, let your guard down against them. They are rare to encounter in the Makai realm, and so are the SS and SSS classed ones. Those 2 ranks are at least on par with that of a kami, so pray you never have to face them," she explained, and Naruto pales at the fact of facing demons whose powers could rival a god's. "Wow. So what class are you, Hibara?" he asks and she smiles at him. "I'm ranked as an S-class Diaukai," she says, and Naruto's eyes bulge out of his head. Wow. But what about the other 8? He asks and she shrugs. "They are A to B ranked, with the Ichibi being the weakest," she answered, and he rubs the back of his head. "Sheesh, and here I thought they'd be A or S classed. Oh well. he says, and his arms and legs glow red and form into the gauntlets and greaves he obtained this morning. Naruto looks at them and grins. I'm gonna name you Diablo. What do you think, Bara-chan? Naruto asks, and the vixen has a grin on her face. I like it. Now create some shadow clones and get to work. She says, and the silver-haired devil nods and does a crisscross seal. Taju Ukage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto calls out, and 30 clones appear with copies of Diablo on their arms and legs. Naruto then gets into a taijutsu stance while the rest do the same. A smirk appears on Naruto's face, and he opens and closes his fist, making the yellow-orange flaming claws jut out. Let's dance. He says with a grin on his face, and the clones grin back. Habara leaps out of the way and watches as Naruto and the other clones engage in battle from the tree branch she landed on. 12 minutes later. Naruto had to duck from a flaming roundhouse kick his clone performed, and he counters with a flaming uppercut, striking it from the jaw. Rising Phoenix. Naruto cried out as he sent the clone flying into the air covered on red flames and disperses. Naruto turns his head to a large fireball coming straight for him. He then spins his body with his right leg out and a circle of fire surrounds him. Coiling Dragon. He yells and kicks the fireball to the other direction while it hits 8 of the clones, causing a huge explosion. Naruto sees the shocked look on the clone's face and a grin appears on his face. He brings his gauntlet-covered arms up and they ignite, covering his arms in red flames. Shooting stars. He cried and releases a barrage of punches, which shoot out fireballs and head towards the cursing clone. The clone dodges, punches, and kicks some of the fireballs, but ends up getting hit by 3 of them until the rest make contact and engulfs its body. The clone disperses and Naruto lands back onto the ground. He wipes a bead of sweat off his forehead and looks around the battle arena. There were scorch marks and trees that were burned or destroyed. Diablo vanishes from his arms and legs, and Habara lands on top of his head with an eye smile on her face. Not bad, Naruto-kun. Loved the fireworks. She says with a grin on her muzzle. Naruto rolls his eyes and moves his hand over her head and strokes her back, gently making her shiver. Let's go back to the house, Habara-chan. All this training has made me hungry. He says, and she yips back in agreement as they head back to the house. Meanwhile, Haku was still in the forest gathering some herb for Tsunami, and behind the tree, Sasuke was watching with a scowl on his face, wondering why a strong female like her would be with the dope. Haku senses his presence, frowns. Come out, Sasuke. I know you're behind that tree. She says, and the emo walks out and towards her. Haku stands up and turns around with an impassive look on her face. She was not gonna let her guard down near this prick. He stops a few feet away from her and speaks. Why are you with the dope of all people? Someone as strong as you doesn't need a weakling like him around you. He says, and she scowls at him. I don't know what your problem is, Sasuke, but please don't insult my boyfriend like that. I choose who I am with and no one else, and as for him being a weakling. I don't think he is if he was able to kill Gato and his thugs while you were on the ground unconscious. She said while smirking inwardly. Sasuke's hand twitches at the jab but doesn't try anything yet. You should be with me, Haku. I'm an uchiha, an elite of my village. I can give you anything you want with a snap of my fingers. If you stay with Uzumaki you'll get nothing and be nothing. He states with a smirk on his face. Haku's brow twitches but breathes in and out to calm down. I really don't care if you're an elite or not, uchiha. I'd rather be with a nobody that cares about my feelings than with a spoiled brat who treat me like an object. Do you really think I'd leave Naruto for money and power? I could care less about status or the fact that you are an uchiha. She says, and Sasuke's scowl becomes a sneer. Then I will make you mine. I can use my restoration rights in Konoha to make you my bride and the council will give you to me. He said with an arrogant smirk. Haku's eyes become cold as ice and she clenches her fist, getting ready to knock the brat's teeth out. Try to force yourself on me and I will end your days as a male, you bastard. She said in a cold tone, shocking Sasuke. She turns around to walk away and Sasuke fumes. He reaches his hand out and grabs her shoulder. You bitch, who do you think you're talking to, bam? Haku turned around and socked Sasuke dead in the face with a right hook and sends him falling onto the ground clutching his bleeding nose. Don't fucking touch me again, asshole. She growled and the prick glares at her as she walks away from him again. If I can't have you then neither will the dope. He thought as he got up and performed a few hand seals, then shoots a large fireball at her back. Haku turns around and her eyes widen when the fireball heads towards her and she doesn't have enough time to jump out of the way or use a water jutsu to block it. She uses her arms to cover her face and hope the attack didn't maim her. A white blur appears in front of her with crimson gauntlets and greaves on his arms and legs. It was Naruto. He rears his leg back and kicks the fireball up into the air and it disperses. Haku uncovers her arms and sees Naruto in front her, glaring daggers at the shocked uchiha. Naruto-kun. was all Haku said, and his weapons disappear, and he suddenly vanishes and clotheslines Sasuke in the neck with his right arm and slams Sasuke into the ground, sits on top of the emo, rears his fist back and starts to punch him in the face. Hibara leaps on Haku's shoulder and yips. Haku turns her head to see the fox and Hibara licks her on the cheek. "It's okay, I'm fine," she says as Hibara wraps her tails around her neck. Naruto stops punching Sasuke in the face and gets off the uchiha and lifts him up by the front of his shirt with both hands. "Haku, are you okay?" Naruto asks without looking at her. "Hi. Thank you, Naruto-kun," she says, and he then rears his fist back and socks Sasuke in the jaw, sending him flying into the air and hitting the ground hard. "You better have a fucking good reason for attacking my girlfriend, Uchiha," Naruto says and cracks his knuckles. Sasuke gets up and staggers a little, glaring at the silver-haired devil. "I don't have to tell you a damn thing, loser. That bitch will be mine," he growls. Naruto's eyes flash red for a second and he unstraps Yamato and tosses it behind his back and it lands next to Haku and Hibara. "Over my dead body, asshole, and don't you dare call her a bitch again. I don't know what the fuck your problem is, but I'm about to knock you off your high horse," he says and gets into a fighting stance and summons Diablo, while Sasuke activates his Sharingan with a beepy smirk on his face. They were about to charge until Kakashi and Zabuza appeared. Kakashi was in between Naruto and Sasuke and Zabuza was in front of Haku. "Naruto, what's going on here?" Kakashi asks, looking at the pissed half-devil. "This prick attacked Haku-chan with a fireball for no reason, and if I didn't deflect it, she would have gotten really hurt, and now I'm gonna beat the shit out that bastard for attacking my girlfriend," he says as his gauntlets glowed red. Zabuza turns his head around and releases some murderous intent in the uchiha. He did what the demon of the mist said in a pissed tone and was ready to break Sasuke in half. Kakashi looks back at Sasuke, who was smirking. "Sasuke, is this true?" he asks. "So what if I attacked her? She should have taken my offer to be my woman and revive my clan. If I can't have her, then neither should the dope," he says. Big mistake. He suddenly found a large blade a few inches away from his jewels, courtesy to a pissed off Zabuza. "You attack my daughter and then insult her right in my face. I should cut off those little pebbles you call balls and shove them down your throat," he growled while Sasuke paled and shivered at the thought of having his anatomy removed by that blade. "Zabuza, please remove your blade from his reproduction organ. The last thing you want is to deal with those council members in our village. Trust me, the civilians and elders are a pain in the ass when it comes to him," he says. The man snorts and places his blade back on his back but keeps glaring at the frightened raven-haired boy. "I'm only gonna say this once, punk. Stay away from my daughter or I'll make sure you never get the chance to restore your clan," he said, adding a small dose of Kai onto Sasuke, who gulps. He looks back at Naruto and the silver-haired teen gave him a look that said, "Push your luck and I'll kick your ass." The Uchiha growls and gets up, walking away from them. "Keep the weakling, loser. You both deserve each other," he grumbles, and a tick mark appears on Naruto's head. Hibara growls at the retreating boy and Haku rubs her ear, getting a purr from her. Kakashi sighs and wonders why Sasuke and Sakura couldn't be more positive than Naruto while rubbing the back of his head. "Sorry about him, Zabuza. I'll make sure he stays away from Haku and Naruto until we leave." Knowing Naruto, he'll probably hang Sasuke by his trousers from a tree branch and leave him there, he said, smiling while Naruto did a thinking pose and a grin appeared on his face. Kakashi saw this and sweat dropped at the grin. "You're going to give Sasuke a wedgie, aren't you?" he asks in a deadpan voice. "Me? Do that? Sensei, I'm hurt that you would think that I'd do that to a fellow teammate and comrade," he says in a mocking, hurtful way while Haku giggles and Zabuza raises an invisible eyebrow. "Don't be a smartass, Naruto. You're the main reason why our Kage has so many wrinkles," he replies, but then covers his mouth while Naruto looks at him in shock, but then his grin grew bigger. "Man, oh man, if Oji-san heard you say that he'd make you do deer ranks and chase Tora until you were his age." Kakashi paled but then glared at the boy. "Tell him and I'll do a Raikiri version of the Senengarashi on you," he said. Naruto pales, and then he picks up Yamato and Haku, who eeps and makes a dash to the house. Zabuza blinks and looks at a chuckling Kakashi. "What the hell is the Senengarashi?" he asks. Kakashi motions the man to lean and he does while Kakashi whispers in his ear. Zabuza's eyes become the size of dinner plates and he looks at Kakashi, who was smiling, and starts to laugh his ass off, and after 5 minutes of laughing, he wipes the tears from his eyes and looks back at the copy nin. "So Kakashi, do you think it's possible for me and Haku to join the village?" he asks. "Yes, it is, since Naruto and the Hokage are on very good terms with each other. That and Haku has a bloodline which our village worships, and considering the fact that you are a master of the silent kill technique and a swordsman, he'd be crazy not to let you join, but you'll probably have to do probation for 2 months and be watched by Anbu before you do active duty." he stated while the man nods. Good. I'm tired of being hunted and having to look out for Haku. She doesn't need this life. Looking over her shoulders every day waiting for a hunter-nin to attack is not what I want for her. He says and shunshuns away as does Kakashi. Back at the house, Sasuke walks in mumbling and heads upstairs to the guest room. Sakura tried to say something to him, but he doesn't even look at her, and she sighs knowing he's having a bad day but will be better tomorrow. That was when Naruto walked in carrying a sleeping Haku bridal style, with Hibara curled up on her stomach while her ears twitched. Sakura blinks at this but on the inside she was jealous. Wait, why am I jealous of Naruto and that Haku girl? He's an idiot. She thinks and shakes her head of those thoughts. Tsunami saw this and smiles at the sight while Naruto carries Haku and Hibara upstairs to the other room. When he enters the room, he gently sets Haku's sleeping form on the bed and Hibara stirs and looks up at Naruto, who does a shushing motion with his finger. Her ears just twitch and she sleeps beside Haku, who was snoring lightly. Naruto smiles at this and removes his sandals. He then lays in the bed and wraps his arms around Haku's sleeping form and she snuggles closer into his warm body. Sleep well, Tenchi. He thought. A week later. The bridge was finally done and Naruto, Kakashi, Zabuza, Haku, Sasuke and Sakura were standing before Tazuna, Tsunami, Inari and the other citizens. Hibara was curled up in a ball on top of Naruto's head with her tails wrapped around his neck. Naruto was currently wearing a dark blue open jacket that stopped to his waist and wore a black sleeveless skin-tight shirt with black cargo pants and Anbu-styled boots with Yamato strapped to his left side and also wore black fingerless gloves with metal plates on them. Tazuna walked up to them and spoke. I want to thank you all for saving our village and restoring the life we thought we all lost. Naruto, I'm also thankful for you because you were the main reason why we completed the bridge and you also saved the life of my daughter and grandson and for that I am forever in your debt. He said and the silver-haired teenager rubbed the back of his head and blushed in embarrassment. It was nothing, old man. I was just doing my mission and protecting your family. He says and Tazuna chuckles at the boy. I know, but still you helped my grandson by showing him that heroes still exist and you also killed Gato and his cronies. Also here. He pulls out a box from his pocket and an envelope and hands it to Naruto, who blinks but takes it. He opens the box and his eyes widen when he sees a gold-plated badge that was in the form of a tsunami wave. That, my boy, is the badge of Wave. Think of it as a thank you gift from the governor of Wave, who sends his thanks to you. In the envelope is something we got from ransacking Gato's mansion. He says while Naruto stares at the golden badge. Thanks, I can't believe I made such a huge impact on Wave. He says and puts the badge and envelope in his pocket. Inari walked up to Naruto with moist eyes and Naruto looks down at him and places his hand on the top of his head. What this? Inari, are you crying? Naruto asks and the boy shakes his head. No. I just have something on my eyes. He babbles while Naruto snickers and ruffles his hair. There's nothing wrong with crying, Squirt. Everyone cries, even someone like me. He states, and that was when Inari glumps Naruto and balls into his shirt. I'm gonna miss you, Ani-san. Inari muffles while crying and Naruto pats him on the back. Same here, kid. Don't worry, when I get the chance, I'll come back and visit you. I promise. He says and Inari lets him go and wipes his eyes with his arm. He then looks at Naruto with a smile on his face. Tsunami then walks up to Naruto and hugs him. Thanks for helping my son, Naruto-kun. She says and Naruto blushes at the contact. You're welcome, Tsunami-san. He says as she lets go of him. Sasuke was fuming at the fact that the dead last was getting all of the credit for saving them when he and Uchiha got nothing. Inari, make sure you look after your mom and make sure that your grandpa doesn't get into a sake-induced coma. He says with a huge grin on his face. Hey, my drinking isn't that bad, you forget it, Tazuna mutters while Tsunami giggles at her father's reaction and some of the villagers snicker. Naruto ruffles Inari's hair one last time and backs away from them. It's time for us for head out, Naruto. Kakashi states and Naruto nods. Well, this is goodbye. See you around, Inari. He says as Haku wraps her arms around his. Tsunami looks at Zabuza and winks at him. Bye, Zabuza-kun. I hope you come to visit me sometime. She says and the man blushes under his bandaged face while Haku and Kakashi look back at the man in shock. Did you too? Kakashi asks only to get a glare from the demon of the mist while he Nin waves his arms up in defense looking sheepish and they all walk on the bridge heading back to Konoha. Kakashi and Zabuza were reading their Icha books while Sakura was pestering Sasuke for a date. So Sasuke-kun, when we go back to Konoha, do you want go out? She asks. No. He says, not even looking at her. Oh. Okay. She says in a downcast voice. The Uchiha however looked at Naruto and Haku and frowned, hating the fact that a loser like him got a strong girl like her. Meanwhile Naruto was walking with Haku and chatting with her. Just wait until we get back to Konoha, Haku-chan. I'm gonna take you to some of my favorite places. There's a ramen stand I always eat lunch at and it's owned by a guy named Ichiraku and his daughter Ann. And then there's the dango shop and Akimichi restaurant. The people there are cool and really nice. He says and Haku smiles at him. I can't wait Naruto-kun. So does that mean when we get there we can go on a date? She asks and Naruto nods. It sure does Haku-chan. He says and then hears Hibara yip and the silver-haired teenager sighs. Yes Hibara you can join us too. He says and she smiles at him. Sakura hears that Naruto and Haku go on a date and frowns wondering how is it that he can get a date and she can't get one with her Sasuke-kun. Back at the bridge, Tazuna speaks up. So what should we name the bridge? He asks the villagers and Inari answers. How about the Great Naruto Bridge? His name does mean maelstrom. Inari says and Tazuna grins. That's an awesome name. The Great Naruto Bridge, named after the boy who brought hope back to Nami no Kuni. He says while the villagers cheer. The next day. Team 7 and the Momochi family made it back and walked past the main gate of Konoha and that was when 5 Anbu appeared in front of them and one with a hawk mask walks forward. Hot Aki-san can you please explain why you have missing Nin Zabuza Momochi Demon of the Mist and 2 strange teenagers with you? He asks and Kakashi spoke up. Well you see Taka, Zabuza Momochi and his daughter, Haku Momochi, wished to seek asylum and join the ninja ranks in our village. And the other one is my student, Naruto Uzumaki. He says and Taka looks at the silver-haired genin who waves back and then looks back at Kakashi. Why is his hair silver white like yours? He asks and Kakashi smiles. That's what I have to talk to the Hokage about. So can we please go to the tower so that I can explain? Don't worry about Zabuza since he's under my jurisdiction and I'm taking full responsibility for him and his daughter. He says and the Anbu nods. Very well but we'll be keeping an eye on him. If he tries anything funny we'll have to use excessive force. Taka says and the Anbu shunshin away. Sasuke, Sakura, you two may go home. Naruto I need you to come with me so that we can tell the Sandaime about your bloodline. He says and Naruto nods. Sasuke HNS and walks towards the Uchiha compound with Sakura following behind him. Kakashi, Naruto, Zabuza, Haku, and Hibara head to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Garrison Saratobi was currently doing some paperwork until he heard the door knock and sighs. Come in. He says and when the door opens, he sees Kakashi walking with a demon of the mist, a girl with long black hair, and a silver-haired teenager with a fox leaping on top of his head. Kakashi would you care to explain to me why the demon of the mist and 2 different teenagers are with you and where is Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura? He asks until the silver-haired boy speaks. I'm Naruto Oji-san. He says with a grin on his face. And Saratobi's eyes bulge out of his head and he looks at Kakashi who nods with an eye smile. Naruto. What happened to you boy? And why is your hair silver white? He asks and Naruto rubs the back of his head. That was when Kakashi speaks up. Hokage-sama before we talk about Naruto's change do you wish to know why I have a missing nin and his daughter tag along with me? I also sent Sasuke and Sakura home if you were wondering. He says. Saratobi sighs and snaps his fingers. 4 Anbu appear from the corners and Saratobi motions them to leave and they shunshin out of the office and puts up a silencing seal. Okay Kakashi now start talking. He orders and the son of the White Fang does. After explaining his side Hiruzen pulls out his pipe and lights it. He then breathes in and out while the smoke comes out of his nostrils. I see. So Naruto care to explain about your change? He asks and Naruto nods. Well it's like this Oji-san. I awakened my bloodline. He says and Saratobi nearly falls out of his chair and stands straight up. Your bloodline he asks and Naruto nods. Yep and my tenant activated it so that I wouldn't die. He replied and Saratobi's eyes widen. Don't worry Zabuza and Haku already know about my condition. Anyways when I activated my bloodline, I suffered from chakra exhaustion and passed out. After that, my body structure started to change so that my Kekkei Genkai can adapt to my body. He says. So what does your bloodline do? Saratobi asks. Well for one thing it makes my body a lot stronger than the body of a normal human. My speed, strength, stamina, 5 senses, and my healing factor is also increased, but its limits are unknown to me right now. I'm also immune to any form of poison, and a stab to the heart or any other vital organ won't kill me, but it'll hurt like hell. He explains and Saratobi's jaw drops to the ground. He then sighs heavily and rubs his temples. Great. You know I'll have to report this to those bakas on the council right? He asks and Naruto shrugs. Yeah but I'm not worried about them right now, but there's more to my bloodline than just those abilities. He says and Hiruzen blinks. Really? He says. Yep. I'm the descendant of a devil who went by the name Sparda. He says. Saratobi's eyes were now the size of dinner plates as does Haku and Zabuza's. Devil. Naruto are you serious? He asks and Naruto nods with a serious look on his face. I'm dead serious old man. Right now I'm half human half devil. He answers. Sarutobi sits down and mumbles to himself for a while. So you are half demon Naruto? Kakashi asks. Devil sensei. There's a difference between a demon and a devil. Devils are of a higher class, while demons are of the lower class, unless said demon is a Yokai or greater demon. Naruto answers. Kakashi just gawks at his student while Hibara's ears were twitching. Naruto was about to explain the rest until Hiruzen speaks. Hold on Naruto, before you finish let me deal with Zabuza and his daughter. Zabuza, Kakashi stated that you wanted to join our ranks correct? He asks and Zabuza nods. I'll allow you to join since we're not allies with Kiri, but since you're a missing nin I'll put you on a 2-month probation period and Anbu will be monitoring you. After that, you'll be given the status of a jonin. Since you specialize in assassination and stealth, you'll do be an A-ranked mission dealing with that field and S-ranked ones later on. Now as for Haku since she isn't a missing nin or in the bingo book, I'll have her be a chunin. Which field would you like to work in young lady? He asks. If it's okay Hokage-sama I'd like to be a meta-combat nin. She answers and he nods while pulling out a flak jacket and leaf headband and a scroll, handing them out to her. Here's your vet, headband and scroll to be in the medical field Haku. Now can you and your father wait outside while I talk with Kakashi and Naruto? He asks and they nod and head out the door. Now then Naruto you say you're the descendant of a devil correct? The professor asks and Naruto nods. Yes and his bloodline happens to be the oldest and most powerful of the other ones that have showed up in the elemental nations. He answers and Sarutobi blinks. And how did you learn of this? Sarutobi asks. Kyuubi. She was the one who told me and activated my bloodline. He answered and both ninjas' eyes widen. Kyuubi told you and what do you mean by she? Kakashi asks and Naruto looks at him. Kyuubi is female sensei. Naruto says and Sarutobi speaks up. And how was it that she knew about your bloodline Naruto? He asks. Well she said that my aura was familiar to that of Sparda's and his sons, and when I was dying, she said the seal that kept her and me separated also sealed away my bloodline, so she forced it to activate. But she also wanted something in return. He said. And what was it she wanted in return? He asks. Naruto pauses for a moment and speaks up once again. She wanted freedom. He answered and the two pale. Sarutobi was about to berate Naruto until said half-devil spoke up. Before you both have a heart attack let me explain the other part of my devil's blood. It can also control Kyuubi and her power and keep her from escaping or doing something I don't approve of. It's sort of like the show Daime's Mokuten abilities without the wood-based jutsu. He explained and they let out a sigh of relief. Also have you ever wondered why Kyuubi would attack the village in the first place? He asks and Hiruzen thinks about it for a moment. Honestly Naruto I have always wondered why Kyuubi attacked the village. Did she tell you? He asks and he nods. Yes. She said that a man wearing a black trench coat with red clouds and an orange spiral mask appeared before her, catching her off guard and casts a powerful gain jutsu on her. This action caused her to go in her berserk state and attack the closest thing in her sight. Unfortunately it was Konoha and the rest you know. She also told me that the man had one eye that was red and had 3 tomos in it. That right there states that the man was an uchiha. Naruto answered making both look at him in shock. So an uchiha was responsible. Did she tell you the name of the uchiha? Sarutobi asks and Naruto shakes his head. No. She said she'd tell me when I was strong enough to face him. He answered. I see. Sarutobi says and Naruto speaks up once again. She also wanted one other thing from me. He says. What was the other thing Naruto? Kakashi asks. The blush appears on Naruto's face and he breathes in and out and looks at them both. She wants me to her mate. He answers and their eyes bulge out of their heads and jaws hung out. I'm sorry Naruto what did you say? Hiruzen asks. She wants me to be her mate. Naruto answered once again. Nani Kakashi and Hiruzen yell as Naruto covered his ears while his brow twitches. Mate and you accepted Kakashi yells. It was either that or dying on that bridge sensei and also Oji-san. He said getting the man's attention. When were you gonna tell me about the Yondaime, Minato Namikaze being my father? He asked and Sarutobi stiffens and Kakashi looked like he was gonna have a heart attack. Naruto how did you know let me guess? Kyuubi right? He asks and Naruto nods. Now before you explain why you didn't tell me even when I asked you I know why. My dad made a lot of enemies during the last war and has a few inside of the village right? He asks and Sarutobi nods. I can understand that you were looking out for me, but you could have told me about him secretly and have me promise not to reveal it. I may not be the brightest kid out there Oji, but I'm not stupid. Anyways, Kyuubi told me about how my dad was the son of Dante, the legendary Dark Knight and a demoness named Trish, but was found and adopted into the Namikaze clan when he was an infant. Like me, he was a devil but only a quarter due to breeding. He would have become a full devil later on, but Kyuubi attacked on that day. He explained while the two gaped at him until Kakashi spoke up. I can't believe it. All this time my sensei's son was alive. Kami, how could I have not noticed the resemblance? He says to himself. Don't sweat it, Kakashi-sensei. You know now and that's what matters. Naruto said, and the copy nin speaks up. You don't understand, Naruto. The day your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, became pregnant with you, I was gonna be your god brother and my teammate, Rin, was gonna be your god sister. Your mother wanted us to be there for you in case something happened to her, sensei. He explained, and Naruto's eyes widen. Hey, are you serious? He asks, and Kakashi nods while looking at the photo of Minato on the wall. Well then I guess that makes us family in way. Speaking of my mother, Oji-sen, what happened to her? Naruto asks. Your mother died from a weak heart, Naruto. When Minato told her that he'd be sealing Kyuubi away into you and that he would die during the process, the stress from that and giving birth to you was too much for her and she had a heart attack. The medics tried everything but she died a few minutes after that. He explained, and Naruto had a pained look in his eyes. Hiruzen then walked over to Minato's picture and moves it to the side, revealing a vault. Sarutobi bites his thumb and performs a few seals and places high thumb on the vault seal. It glows red and it opens up, revealing 4 scrolls and a key. One was yellow, the second one was red, the third was white, and the final one was green. These are the scrolls they left for you, Naruto. You were supposed to get them and the estate that's in the compound section of the village and near the mountains when you became a Chunin, but I believe you are ready to claim them. However, you should keep your mother's maiden name for now, but you can change it when you become a Chunin. Sarutobi says, and Naruto nods while the old man hands Naruto the 4 scrolls and puts them in him inside coat pockets. That was when Hibara yawned and looked at Sarutobi and Kakashi before yipping at Naruto. Oh yeah. Hey Oji, have you met Hibara? He said, pointing to the fox who was eye-smiling at the old man. No, I haven't. And why does she have 2 tails? He asks. Naruto snickers as Hibara leaps off of Naruto's head and lands in front of them. She then glows and her body starts to take the form of a human around Naruto's height, while Sarutobi and Kakashi's eyes widen as they watch the 2-tailed fox transform into human fox hybrid with long crimson hair, ruby red eyes, canines jutting from her upper lip. She appeared to be 15 and wore a black t-shirt and crimson red pants that hugged her hourglass figure, and she had 2 red tails that swayed back and forth, and she also had 2 red fox ears. Sarutobi and Kakashi just stare at her until Naruto spoke up. Guys, say hello to Hibara, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He says with a grin on his face. Thud. Thud. Naruto looks down at Hiruzen and Kakashi, who fainted and sweat dropped. I think I went a little overboard with this Hibara-chan. He states, and she chuckles. Naruto pulls out a small vial and hands it to Hibara. It's smelling salt. Use it on the old monkey. I have my way of waking up, sensei. Also conceal your ears and tails. He says, and she nods and her ears and tails disappear, replacing her ears with human-shaped ones. Naruto unstraps Yamato from his belt, twirls it in his hand a few times, and holds it by the end of its sheath. The bar waves the smelling salts in front of the old man's nose, and he sits up instantly. What the he says and looks around only to hear Yamato's sheath make contact with Kakashi's head. Said ninja was standing up rubbing the lump on his head, while Naruto had a smirk on his face while Yamato was resting on his shoulder. Now that you two are awake, say hi to Hibara, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He says, and the two look at Hibara, who waved at them with a cheeky grin on her face. Hey monkeys. She says, making Hiruzen and Kakashi look back at Naruto. Naruto, how did she get out of the seal? Did it break? Hiruzen asks, and praying that she didn't want vengeance. No. The seal was meant to keep her from escaping unless I granted her freedom. Plus I already told you that my devil's blood keeps her in check. He says, but then his brow twitches when she wraps her arms around his neck and presses the side of her face onto his. Hiruzen and Kakashi see this and had to suppress a perverted giggle. I see. Well Naruto, you are without a doubt the most surprising ninja in the village, and I'll trust your judgment on Hibara. But everything about her being free will remain a secret. I don't want the populace getting hysteric because she is roaming around in the village in her hybrid form. He says, and they nod. Kakashi, I want you to take Naruto, Hibara, Zabuza and Haku to the Namikaze estate. They'll be staying with Naruto for the time being until Zabuza's probation is finished. He says, and the Cyclops nods. Hibara morphs into her fox form and leaps on Naruto's shoulder, while nuzzling her face against his as the two walk out. Sarutobi sits back down in his chair and sighs. That boy is gonna be the death me. He says in a humorous tone as he got back to his paperwork. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.